Did you know there was a time when humans didn't think they were the most important thing in the world? It sounds impossible to imagine in today's world. We live in a world built around the assumption that everything leads to us, that intelligence ends with us, that meaning begins with us. But for most of human history, that idea would have seemed absurd, because humans weren't first, and for a very long time didn't pretend to be. Before gods lived in heaven, they lived in fur and feather. This is sacred animals. When gods walked beside us, before humans told stories about themselves, there were already stories. They were not written. They were not spoken. They moved. They breathed. They hunted. They watched from the edges of the dark. Before temples, before kings, before even the idea of gods, there were animals. And humans knew it. Early humans did not look at animals and see something beneath them. They did not see animals as weaker or lesser than themselves. They saw survivors. Animals knew where to go when seasons changed. They endured cold, hunger, and injury. They saw at night. They sensed danger before it arrived. To early humans, this wasn't coincidence. It was experience. Animals had already figured out how to live in a world humans barely understood. The world was not arranged for human comfort. Storms destroyed shelter without warning. Predators hunted with efficiency. The land demanded obedience. And in that world, humans were not masters. They were newcomers. So, when humans asked the most important question, how does this world work? They didn't look inward. They looked outward. They watched the animals. They noticed wolves hunting together, birds navigating invisible paths, snakes shedding their skin and returning renewed. These weren't seen as traits, they were seen as signs, messages. Animals moved through the world as if they already understood something humans did not. And slowly, across generations, humans reached a conclusion. Animals were not just alive, they were closer to the world around them, closer to the rhythms, closer to whatever shaped it, closer to whatever came before. That closeness made them sacred. This did not begin as worship, it began as humility. Humans didn't just ask, what can this animal do for us? They asked, what does this animal know? And that question changed everything. Animals were no longer just hunted, they were honoured. Rules formed, rituals followed, stories spread. Some animals could not be eaten, some could not be harmed. The earliest religions did not begin with gods that looked like humans. They began with gods that looked like animals. Because animals came first, this wasn't isolated. Across continents, cultures arrived at the same belief. Animals were intermediaries, bridges between the visible world and forces humans could not control. Some animals became protectors. Some were believed to carry warnings, messages, blessings. But none were insignificant. To live in such a world meant accepting one uncomfortable truth. Humans were not at the center of existence. That belief shaped behavior. If animals were sacred, killing was never casual. If animals were divine, humans were accountable. This wasn't superstition, it was restraint, a recognition. That power existed outside human choice. But something changed, not suddenly, not deliberately. Humans settled. Walls replaced movement. Farming replaced migration. Animals became predictable, then controllable. And reverence narrowed. Slowly, almost invisibly, humans stopped asking what animals knew and started deciding what animals were worth. That is when the old belief ended. Not because animals stopped being powerful, but because humans decided they were more important. That was the moment animals stopped being gods. Not because the world changed, but because the story humans told about themselves did. That wasn't the beginning of knowledge, it was the beginning of separation. The moment humans placed themselves above the world, instead of within it, something was gained: control. But perhaps more significantly, something was lost: humility. So yes, there was a time when humans didn't place themselves at the center of everything. Not because they lacked confidence, but because the world around them was louder. The land imposed limits. Survival required attention, not dominance. Humility wasn't a virtue then, it was a condition. It wasn't learned, it was enforced. When that humility faded, what changed was orientation. Humans stopped listening outward and began measuring inward. Animals lost their authority. Not authority in the sense of power, but the right to be listened to. Animals stopped being treated as teachers, indicators, or warnings. Instead, they became resources, property, tools. Their behavior no longer meant anything unless humans decided it did. Nature lost its voice. Limits became challenges instead of warnings. This gave us power, scale, speed. But it also gave us distance. Distance from consequence. Distance from restraint. Distance from the reminder that we were once only participants here. And so the most important shift wasn't technological. It was philosophical. The moment humans decided they mattered most, everything else became something to manage, not something to answer to. This story isn't about returning to worship, it's about remembering position. There was a time when humans understood they were not first, not central, not in control. And for most of our history, that understanding kept us alive. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more true stories of the remarkable animals that helped shape human history, please share and hit the like, subscribe and alert bell to show your support.